Welcome to this special presentation from the Criminal Mastermind. In this presentation, I will walk through an audit of your intake process, talking about the 4 steps you can take to make sure your intake system is perfect for the type of leads that you get. We'll go through the 3 C's and really document everything that you need to do to get the most out of your intake process. Enjoy!
Hey there, everybody. Thank you for being here today. I'm just letting everybody in and letting all their AI note takers get approval. It seems to take the longest to do anything here, but thank you for being with us today. This is a special Friday session where we're going to talk all about intake. And so my goal here today is to help you audit your own intake. And so I'm going to bring up my slides here so we have it. And of course, if you have any questions during the presentation, please be sure to put it up in the chat. I'll be sure that I can work them into the presentation as well. But really what we want to do today is talk about what you're going to learn. And what my plan is for this session is for you to actually do some work. It's going to not be just simply lecture. We're going to be taking some, 2, 3, 4, 5-minute breaks during this, so you can actually write things down as I pose questions to you, because I want you to actually come away from this session with actionable items that you can do to actually move your intake better, faster, stronger, and do what it is that we need to do. For those of you who are here as a team member of one of my mastermind members, just a little bit about who I am. I am a criminal defense lawyer. I've been running a firm now for 27 years. We have 12 lawyers all over the country, really. I've got a lawyer in Oklahoma. I've got one in South Carolina. Most of my lawyers are here in Connecticut. And what we do is criminal defense and DUI defense. So I'm in the trenches just like you. I talk to my leadership team every day about the things that are issues in running a firm. So I'm not just a talking head salesperson type of thing. I'm in the mix, just like you are. I've written a number of books. My most recent book, One Day MBA for Lawyers, really sort of drills down all of the essential financial things that you need to know as running a business. I'm going to do another one of these special sessions coming up in about 6 weeks for all the members. And of course, they can bring you along to this as well. And so every 6 weeks or so, we'll be doing a special session that's different from our standard speakers. It's things where I can help you people dive in to the things that are actually running your office every day. So we're going to do, the next one is going to be systemizing and delegating within your firm. So I really hope you get something out of it today. But let's talk a little bit about the exercise itself of auditing your intake. And I think what you need to do is actually think about what you want from your intake. And this is for the lawyers that are on the call. And this is for the team members that are on the call. It's important for us to actually think, what are we looking to get out of all of the intakes that are coming in? It may be that we want more cash flow. It may be that we want a better selection of cases. It may be that we want the firm to grow, take over more market share or something along those lines. But it's really necessary for you to define what it is that you're looking for. Because once you have defined what you're looking for, and I know some people want a volume firm, right? They say, hey, look, if we can take 1,000 cases a year, let's do it. Let's take 2,500 cases a year. And other people say, I want my intake to really narrow the focus on the type of clients that we want. High-paying clients, complicated cases, that type of thing, cases that maybe you want to focus on being a trial lawyer. So what you really need to do is identify what you're looking for out of your intake, because depending on what you're looking for, you may structure your intake differently than other people structure their intake. And when we are doing that, we need to be honest with ourselves about what's the barrier to that. So take a moment now and put up either in the chat, or just if you don't want to share it with everybody, you can talk about it to yourselves in your own Slack or however you handle internal communications, or just write it on a notepad if you're a solo, right? What are you looking for out of your intake? Is it better cash flow? Is it better selection of cases? Is it a a better selection of clients, right? You don't care what the cases are, but you want a certain type of clientele. Maybe they've got more money. Maybe they have certain types of cases. Let's write that down so that you can be targeting those types of people as soon as they start interacting with your firm, with your brand. So write that down. And then once you have that written down, I want you to take a few moments to actually let's figure out what the main barrier to you having that type of intake system that is cultivating those clients for you. Is it a time thing? Are you looking to spend more time with these clients to really parse out the ones that you don't want? Or is it a leads thing? Hey, you're getting some calls, but in order to have the type of firm that you want, you need more of those calls or more of those leads coming in. And then the last thing is maybe you need to have specific staff use tools to help you convert those clients. So the main two questions that I want you to be able to answer for yourself right now is, what do you want from your intakes? And what is the main barrier to that? And it's a very tough thing to have to actually put it down on paper and say, because sometimes you're going to be right. What is the main barrier? It's me. I'm the main barrier. There's a lot of lawyers who insist I need to be involved in every part of the intake process. And we'll talk a little bit about how we can avoid some of that. But a lot of lawyers tend to be micromanagers. And if you are a staffer, a team member of that lawyer, you might be able to say to them, hey, you know what? You're the problem. You're getting in the way of us being able to convert these clients to give us the kind of clients, type of cases that we need. So those are the initial thoughts that I want you to go through. But let's talk about, why do we need to audit? There's a number of reasons why we need to actually audit our intake, right? A leaky bucket will waste your firm's money. So if you have intakes that are coming in and they're escaping, well, you've paid money to get them into your lead. And either you're paying your goodwill through a referral source, or you're paying money to a digital vendor or pay-per-click, LSAs, whatever. That leaky bucket is wasting firm money. Now, the other waste comes from time wasting, and a poor process is wasting time. It turns into stress because you're trying to do a lot with a small amount of time because you've wasted time on other things. And I don't want you to be doing that. And both of those, either wasted money or wasted time, will impact not only your job satisfaction, but the job satisfaction of everyone in your firm. You'll feel like you're under stress all the time. And intakes, because of the sort of process that we're in, people are looking to solve their problem right away. They want speed more and more. So if you have a delayed intake process, you could be causing the frustration to your own lead flow, to your own conversions. And we want to talk about how we can solve that. And maybe that starts with getting you out of your own way. But with this audit, we can convert faster. We can grow more if that's your goal. We can have better margins, which is better for everybody. Even if you have a smaller caseload, the better profit margin on it is going to help everybody at the firm. It's going to help the firm to be more secure, more stable, and that allows people to make more money, which is, everybody wants to make more money, from the owner of the firm all the way down to the frontline team members. So this is why an intake audit is so necessary. So now, take out your pen and a piece of paper, and I want you to write down some questions for me on the next slide. Let's talk about your client journey. Where do your clients come from? Let's think about that. Now, obviously, if you're a lawyer, you're getting some clients by way of referral. Where are they coming from by way of referral? Are they coming from professionals like therapists? Are they coming from professionals like other lawyers that are inside your geographical area that don't handle your types of cases? Like perhaps they are divorce lawyers or personal injury lawyers that you've cultivated relationships with. Are they coming from other criminal defense lawyers in other parts of your state or other parts of your county? And are they the ones that are sending them to you? Or is it coming by way of digital leads? And if it's digital leads, is it organic? Is it pay-per-click? Is it LSAs? Is it social media? So you'll see that, if I were to say to you, where do your clients come from? You say referrals and marketing. Well, referrals and marketing, that's two. but each one of those has a subset, professional referrals, lay people referrals, your mailing list, all of those things. So let's write down all of the different areas that we get the leads from. That way we know we can build a system that works to accommodate all of those leads and how they interact with you. Okay. So now that you've written down all of those things, the next question is, what do you do after they contact you? Okay. So I'm just going to assume that the majority of people contact you either through a web form on your website or they call into your firm. I'm sure there's social media DMs. I'm sure there's text messaging going on for people who have that. But what we want to do is actually sort of limit it, because each journey is going to take its own path. So if the majority of people are entering your funnel, so to speak, and then a funnel is taking all of the leads that come in and go through the process to become a converted client, we want to have it so that we can say, okay, our call-ins are going to go this way, our text-ins are going to go this way, and we're going to create actually the journey itself so we can identify the touch points that we're making. And that's a big part, touch points. If I were to call into your office and say, hey, I need to hire a lawyer, that's my first touch point with your office, okay? How many touch points do you have throughout your current intake process? Is it, hey, we pick up the phone and you're there and that's our touch point, and then I try to call you and maybe I don't answer, and maybe I call you once, or maybe you're like other firms and you call 15 times and you send 15 text messages? What is your process to touch these potential people multiple times in the sales process? And one of the reasons why we want to identify the number of touch points. So sit there with your pen and figure out, okay, they call in, we talk to them once, then we do a follow-up phone call. That's 2 touch points. Maybe we send them an email, right? That could be a 3rd touch point. I'll tell you right now, in our office, we have a minimum of 60 touch points from when a new client calls into our office before we're done with them, if they haven't converted. So we're talking a number of things. And the reason why we talk to them and touch them so often is that one of the things you need to realize as lawyers is that we value the law and our role in it. And we identify that, having a problem with the criminal justice system is a pretty big deal. And probably everybody on this call thinks along those lines. But the reality is these people that are calling us have the problem of their criminal defense case, but also probably have other problems going on in their life. Maybe it's relationship, maybe it's substance abuse, maybe it's job insecurity, or anything else. And so while they've got all of these competing problems, the court one may not necessarily be their highest priority. So they're not necessarily focusing on what we would focus on. It's probably why they're clients and not also working for us in a law firm, right? So what we need to do is we need to identify how many times we can touch them to remind them that we exist. It often takes people 9 to 12 times to remember who you are once you're doing it. Think about this, right? How many times have you been at an event, a birthday party, cocktail party, whatever you want to call it, and somebody introduces themselves to you and they tell you their name and you immediately forget it? They may even tell it to you twice over the course of the night, and you still immediately forget it. You walk out the door and you say, I don't even remember that person's name. Well, that's because while they did leave some impression on you, they didn't leave enough of an impression on you that you were going to remember the name. So what I need you to do is remember that you need to remind people over and over and over again who you are, and you do that through a process, a systemized process. Now, in addition to that, let's talk about how many people in your office are they talking to? Because they may talk to one person if you're a small operation, and that is you as the lawyer, right? Or they may talk to your intake person if you have one, or they may talk to your paralegal if you have one. But we want to identify who are they talking to and when are they talking to in this process, right? Because if we're able to identify all of the touch points and who is doing the touching, we can take actions that will make it better for that person to actually hire you. And the reason why I want you to do this process do answer these questions is because every person that calls into your office costs that office money. And it's very difficult for you to understand that, not only as a lawyer, but also as a teammate in the law firm. It's not unusual for lawyers to spend four, five, $600 to make that phone ring because we're spending money on advertising and marketing. We're doing networking events. We're taking other people out to dinner or to lunch. We're building those relationships and we're spending money and time to do that. And so when a phone call comes in, you have to say, wow, this phone call just cost me $450. I need to give it the attention it deserves. And it may not even be money out of your pocket. It might be the time out of your pocket to generate that referral. So if you're a member of a local criminal defense lawyers association, if you are active in networking groups, that's taking time out of your day, taking time out of your day that you could otherwise bill somebody or be productive or close other clients. And so there is a cost to talking to somebody who is a lead, and you need to ascribe to that your process the cost, because you need to figure out, hey, am I giving this client who I paid $450 to get them to call my office, am I giving them $450 worth of attention to get them to convert? Because otherwise you're just flushing money down the toilet. And finally, the last thing that I want you to answer in this client journey is, how do you treat the leads? Are they all treated the same as they come in? So if a person calls you and they have no knowledge of who you are, maybe they just looked you up on Google, or somebody mentioned them in passing, but they don't know who, or their beloved auntie said you need to give this lawyer a call. Are you going to treat all of those people the same way as they contact you? Or are you going to have different paths for people who are coming in by way of referral or coming in by way of a certain type of case? Like maybe if it's, the child sex abuse image type of cases that we handle, you need to do a sit down with them because the stakes are higher and it's not something you necessarily want to close over the phone. If it's a first offense DUI and you can close them over the phone, maybe the process is the same, whether or not it's a referral or an internet lead. So those are the questions of the client journey. So write down on a piece of paper, where do they come from? What do you do after they contact you? How often do you touch them from initial contact through deciding whether or not they are retaining you or you're never going to hear from them again? Is it, 2 times, 10 times, 20 times, however many times it is? What staff, what team members are included in that intake process? And how do you treat leads? All the same or differently? And why do you do it differently if you do? Because we need to answer those questions to be able to really, truly understand how our intake process is going. Now, at this point in the client journey, there's going to be some interaction between your office and the potential new client. But what I want you to do is really sit down and put this question next. What information do you collect from them? When do you collect it? And why do you collect it then? A lot of times, I can remember back when I started out in my career, a lot of times I would have these really long, 3, 4, 5-page intakes that I would do with people over the phone. And I would pepper them with questions about stuff. And then I realized I don't necessarily need their social security number or even their driver's license number until after they've retained me. Number one, why keep all this data about somebody else if they're not going to be a client? And number two, why am I investing all of this time getting all of this information from somebody if they're not going to actually hire me? Because now what am I doing? I'm wasting time, right? So have a critical eye to what type of information you need. Obviously, you need ways to get in touch with them. Cell phone number, email address, physical address, name, emergency contact, that type of stuff. But let's not necessarily go too deep into collecting, everything about their life history early on, because you don't want to be the person who is wasting all of that precious time with them collecting data that you don't necessarily need until you know they're willing to hire you. Okay? So go through your intake process and actually ask yourself, do we need this information? Do we need it right now? Do we need it before they've hired us? Because you can cut down on some of the BS you're collecting, and actually spend more time engaging with the person, because you're not developing rapport with an intake or with a new client, right? If you're asking them basic biographical data. That's just rote. They're sitting there, they're just spitting it back. It's like they're filling out a form at a doctor's office. And let me tell you, I have to fill out a new contact information form every time I go to the doctor's, and it just gets scanned and added to my file. I don't know why they make me do that. We need to be conscious of our leads' time. And if we can honor them and show them that we're not going to waste their time with minutia when it really doesn't matter yet, then they can actually see more respect from you and engage with your people more. And I really want to encourage you to do that. So now that we've seen our client journey, take a moment, and I'm going to pause here. I want you to go through it and identify what is the biggest roadblock in that journey. So take a look at your notes and identify, okay, what's going to be my roadblock? All right, now, in addition to identifying the roadblocks, take a look at the intake process that you have documented out. Does that match what you want in your head to happen in your office? Most of the time, it probably doesn't. And that's because A, we don't have a documented system, but B, it's very hard because intake is something that needs to be objectively done, but there's some, there's some subjective parts to it. When to ask the right question, when to dive a little deeper, when to see the client is getting emotional and back off. So you need to have an objective criteria for getting the bare minimum of the stuff that you need to identify the type of case, identify that you can help them, and identify the points that you need for pricing it out. But we may not necessarily have actually documented the process for doing that for all of our team members. So identify what existed really only in your head. For me, for the longest time, is I wanted an intake to be sent a thank you note saying thank you for even just contacting us. I did everything. I went out and I bought every person in my office. They had 1,000 note cards with 1,000 envelopes, and their part of their intake process was, hey, send them a note card saying thank you for giving us a call. And I thought that's going to make it warm and fuzzy. But what I found was my intake people, even though I told them I wanted to do it, and we said send note card in our steps of our process, they were so busy getting on the next call or writing their notes that they would skip that step. So what we did, we found a way to automate it. We're going to talk about that down the line. Now, taking a look at that customer journey, that potential new client journey, let's identify, just looking at it, where we lose clients the most. Okay? So maybe your intake process includes sending out a payment link and a retainer agreement, right? Do you ever follow up after that? Do you place a phone call, send a text message, or maybe you just let it sit out there? Or maybe you don't do that at all, right? What about this? What if you have a process where you talk to the people, you feel confident that they're going to hire you, you say, great, I hope to hear from you, and it's Friday at 2:00, and then you don't hear from them on Saturday or Sunday because they figure your office is closed. Then you don't hear from them on Monday, Tuesday. The reason why you don't hear from them is, number one, they don't have a clear call to action on what to do next. And they may be waiting for you to follow up, and you're waiting for them to follow up. And so both of you are not on the same page. So one of the things that we like to do in our intake is every time we quote a fee, as soon as we quote a fee, we say, hey, we're going to send you a copy of our retainer agreement. So this way, on Saturday night, when you're finally relaxed, you're home with your friends or your family, and they say, okay, so what are you going to do? And you decide, okay, I'm going to hire Attorney Ruane. They can go into their email and click a link and make that payment and sign those documents without having to re-engage with our firm and have to wait until Monday. These are the types of tools that are out there. And so we want to make it frictionless. We want to make it easy for them to just execute. One of the things that Amazon has done is they have done that add to cart. Amazon has like a 90%. If you've added it to your cart, you're going to buy it at some point. You may save it for later. They give you that option, but they're making it as easy as possible for you to buy that from them. Client psychology truly works. You want to make it frictionless. And so you want to find out, hey, how are we making this easier for us in our journey to take away the barriers, the blocks, the roadblocks that might happen. If that client wanted to hire you at 5:15 on a Friday and called in and got your answering service, now they've got a 48-hour roadblock. A lot can happen within 48 hours. Their friend can say, oh, you should hire this other lawyer. He's a buddy of mine. Or, she's great. She worked on a case for my cousin. And now all of a sudden you're no longer in the mix because they're being distracted. But if at 5:15 they had the ability to click and hire you, well, now they can say to that other person, hey, I already hired somebody. I'm good. I mean, for me, one of the best things we ever did as a firm was staff intake on Saturday and Sunday. We get so many people retaining. We make our payroll most weeks by the end of Sunday, and then the rest becomes gravy after that. Okay? How many steps are in that system of that client journey? Are you talking to people, like I said, 2 times, 5 times, 10 times? What are your different touch points? Make sure you document through that whole process so that you have it. And now we're going to go in and we're going to optimize, okay? And the first thing we need to do is, what do we need to cut? We talked a little bit about that moments ago. Maybe we're getting too much information from them up front. Now, I'm not going to tell you what you feel that you need, but go through some of your intake notes and determine if you really needed all of that detail to be able to quote them a reasonable fee. And most of the time, you might find you don't need the deep details. And I'm of the opinion that I don't want to go deep into the facts of the case until I'm actually retained, because until that happens, I care about you, but I don't care about your problem. I get paid to resolve your problem, and once you pay me, then I can hear about your problem, right? So I don't think that lawyers who spend 2 or 3 hours on an intake with somebody are doing themselves a service. And you know who they're really screwing over? Their existing client base, because that 2 hours of chasing new money is time that should be spent on the people who've already paid you. And so that's how we phrase it when people say, well, when am I going to talk to a lawyer? We say, you will as soon as you retain us. I mean, I don't get a teeth cleaning from the dentist on my first time calling in. I got to go through the hygienist and all that other stuff first, right? I got to have that lined up the right way. And it's the same way here. You don't start with the final person in the line. You got to actually hire us till we can get there. I always give my insurance information and my copay to the people at my doctor's office or my dentist's office or my account, or my, I guess at the barber I pay after my haircut, but they probably wouldn't take me back as a customer if I didn't. But I'm taking care of payment up front for these professional services, and I think that clients have come to expect that, and you do yourself a disservice by not forcing that to be an issue. So look at that journey that you've documented and see what is it that you can cut. Because if you can cut out steps, you can actually identify savings of time, savings of things that are wasted, and it will put you in a situation where you can actually spend more time engaging with people and building that relationship. And that's going to make the difference between you and some other law firm that they may be talking to. And after we've decided what we're going to cut, well, let's talk about what we can clean. Like I said, too many lawyers feel that they should be micromanaging every part of the process. But if your staff can execute some of these things, like sending the retainer agreement, sending the payment link, those are the types of things that we need to instruct them. Because how many times have I been in a situation where a lawyer's like, well, I'm going to get a retainer agreement. I'm going to print one out. And my father used to do this all the time. He would go into it. He'd leave the client in the conference room. He'd go to his office, quickly add a few things to the retainer agreement, print it out, walk it into the client and say, I'm going to have you sign this, and then I'll sign it too. And then I'll go up and I'll make a photocopy of it. And I'll give you a copy of it, that type of thing. If their staff can be doing this stuff for you, your highest best use of time as an attorney is to be focused on solving the legal problems of your clients, because the faster you can close a case, the more profitable that case is to the firm. And if your support team can actually execute on some of these things for you, we need to make sure that they have a clean system for doing it. And do they have the time to do it? And if they don't, we need to find a way to give them the time. One of the things that I like to do in my office is time block. And so we have specific time blocks on our intake team that, they're going to do our follow-ups one day in the morning and the next day in the afternoon, because you never know when people can answer their phone, right? So we time block, hey, this is when the person who's in charge of follow-ups for this week is going to do it. So we know that people are actually paying attention to their role at the time they're supposed to be doing it. Look also at that journey, and maybe there's stuff that you can reduce from 3 steps down to 1, right? Like that whole process of, creating a retainer agreement and printing it out and walking to somebody's signature. Maybe a lot easier to have a standard fee agreement that outlines the basics, and you can send that by email to them, or by one of the, the online e-signature things. Adobe has them. Google now has it built into their software. There's Right Signature. There's DocuSign. You've done it for any other provider, but maybe you can remove those steps and take it from 3 or 4 steps down to 1. That's going to save time, and it's going to become more efficient. And when you've systemized it, things always get done. In our state, whenever we get a bar complaint, the first thing that local grievance counsel asks us for is send us over your retainer agreement. In my office, we make it a rule: can't open a file without one. Even if it says it's for $0, you need to have that signed. And the reason why we do that is because we know we have to supply that if we ever get a bar complaint, and we want to be protected. So we are setting ourselves up to be successful in the intake process by making sure that we have a system so that we hit the important parts every single time. And we will actually audit the system to make sure that people are following it. Because if they're not part of our team, and they can be doing something to hurt the firm. And we definitely do that. And what you'll find in the cleaning process is maybe you say, okay, I have a bookkeeper, and I have a bookkeeper that works for me, part-time, 4 days a week. Well, guess what? The bookkeeper can be the person who sends out the information on how to pay, if that's part of the system that you want to create, so that they are following. I mean, they're the bookkeeper. They're going to track those payments, right? So maybe you make that part of their job and take it off the burden of somebody else. Or maybe you say, no, I want my intake person to send the retainer agreement and send the payment link, because I want to bundle it into one step in the process to make sure that gets done and not have multiple people having to do it. I can't tell you what the right thing to do for your practice is. I can tell you that you want to make sure that you have a system that is so clear and easy that anybody could follow it, because there's going to be a time when you add someone to your office, be it a paralegal, a legal assistant, a receptionist, a new intake person, a new lawyer. You need to be able to demonstrate that your systems are so clear that no one can make any mistakes. Too many times I interact with people and they say, hey, can you help me, go through the systems in my office? And they'll have a system for intake, and it'll be 190 steps long. The chances of you missing something when you have that many steps in the process are ridiculously high. You want to make it as simple and as easy as possible. So you may want to have multiple follow-up phone calls for 15 days after a lead, but you can have a spreadsheet to track that. You don't want to have people having individual things for every person, because it may take too long and things might get missed. So that's cleaning. So we've cut, we've cleaned, and now we're going to clarify, right? So the 3 C's. Do people in your office do things differently for the same task? This is my bugaboo, right? Because I'm a system-based process person. It allows me to think logically. I really have trouble thinking illogically when it comes to things, because if I have somebody in one desk doing it one way and they say, well, I do it this process, and another person on the other end says, well, I do it the exact opposite way, but we get to the same result. That's a problem for me, because I can't see where anybody is in the process at one time, because everybody's process is a little different. And that's, when you're trying to scale a business, where you're trying to run a business and avoid dumpster fires, you have to have a single way of doing things. So talk to the people in your office and identify what they are doing and how they are doing the intake process. Do they, I schedule all my emails when I do my initial email follow-up. I go into my email client and I can set up an automatic email every day for the next 10 or 15 days. Or maybe I add them to a MailChimp or ActiveCampaign or as an email provider or a CRM, that we can send automated emails out. Or I'm using a service based on Twilio that allows me, like Yeti text or text request that allows me to send text messages. Or maybe I'm just using my Google Voice account to be able to send these things. You can do certain things, but you want to make sure everybody on your team that's touching it is doing it the very same way. And then let's empower them to actually write out the process together and sit there. So when we get off this call in about a half hour or so, I want you to take them some time to talk to your people and say, hey, here's our process. If you have a big whiteboard or, one of those huge things that we use in trial, one of those huge poster boards, let's write it down and let's talk about where we can move things and what we can do in what order so that we have it. Because by doing that, we're going to make our teams more efficient and we're going to get a better quality of converted clients into our firm. Okay, so can you cut? Can you clarify? Can you cut? Can you clean? And can you clarify? Always remember the 3 C's and you'll be able to do this no problem at all. Because if you are doing this, your intake matters to you. So take a few moments now and go through your list of things that are in front of you and identify maybe one thing to cut, one thing to clean, and one thing to clarify. So take a moment and actually write that down on your notepad so that you have it, so that you can go back to it after this call is over and start to talk about how we can make our intake process better. I'll give you 2 minutes to do that. Okay. Now that we've gotten through the 3 C's, let's talk about one of my favorite things to do in the intake process, and that is automations. Now, these things can be a little tricky, but it's gotten so much easier over the last decade or so that it's something that you should be looking into. One of the great things about a lot of the email programs that are out there, like ActiveCampaign and MailChimp, is that not only can you schedule automated emails and follow up, but you can actually send automated text messaging. In fact, if everybody who's on this call, if you got a text message from me reminding you that we were starting, you got it because you're part of my text message mailing list so that I can update you about Mastermind things. And the reason why I do that is because emails get opened, 10, 12, 14% of the time, but text messages get opened 95% of the time within the 5 minutes of you sending it. And that's an amazing, amazing thing. A lot of the services out there will allow you to actually set up automations of both text message and of emails in a single campaign. You need to do a few things. You need to validate your account so that they have proof of who you are sending the text messaging, because the problems with email marketing and the amount of spam that got out there, they're really nervous about text message spam because of the amazing open rates and how frustrated you are if your phone is dinging and it's not something that actually interests you. But you can actually take some time, or you can find somebody on Upwork or anybody out there who does these types of automations. There's plenty of providers that you can find, but you can actually use tools like Zapier to automate your text messaging. As you add people to a spreadsheet and then take them off a spreadsheet, they would be sent text messages at certain times. Or you can use the native integrations themselves built into all of these email platforms. And what I need you to do is actually take a moment and identify what software you're actually using in your office already. Like if you're just using Google Workplace, right, the workspace, and you have Google Sheets and you have Google Voice for your phone number, you can very easily automate things using Zapier to be able to send messages over to send those things. And what software are you using? So you might have an email newsletter that you're doing through MailChimp, for example, but you could also set up a drip campaign that as you tag people in your list, your contact list, tagged with lead, they get sent an automated campaign of 10 or 12 or 15 emails over a period of a month, that they are constantly reminded about who you are, keeping you at top of mind. And you could alternate those with SMS or whatever you want to do. You could even send them links to Calendly or Google appointments if you are doing those things. So you want to make it as easy as possible for something to be automated so that the burden is not on you, it's not on your team, and it's not subject to things getting in the way of being executed. The great thing about automations is that, they just show up and do their job. But you need to pay attention to your automations, because as these companies upgrade their software, you may not be able to set it and forget it and look back 3 years later and find out, oh my gosh, nothing ever actually went through because they changed their protocols and I never clicked this button to turn it back on. So this isn't something that you can set and forget, but it's something that you can set and check, is what I call it. So think about it in terms of automation. Is, in a perfect world, what's the thing that you wish you had a magic wand to do to make your life easier in terms of intake? Is it the automations? Is it a certain software? Like there's softwares out there like Hona and Case Status that allow you to have constant updates to your current clients. Maybe you need to do something like Lead Docket, where that can text clients automatically right from its interface. Or maybe you want to take some time and separate your leads from your actual clients, because you'll wind up with more leads than you will with clients, right? And so maybe you want to have two separate CRMs, one for your emailing and your monthly newsletter, which you can still send out to non-clients. In fact, we send more emails to people who didn't hire us every month than people who did hire us, because our client list of former clients is about 10,000, but we've got 23,000 people in our non-client list, and they get a monthly newsletter just as much as the active clients or the former clients do. And some months our open rates for our non-clients is higher than our existing clients or former clients. And we're just reminding them that we exist. And it's amazing how often, as you build these lists, you'll get people, oh, I got you from your newsletter. Or you were the only people that kept in touch with me. We automate as part of our intake process, whether you hire us or not. We're going to send you an email with me holding a cake on your birthday. And people sometimes tell us, hey, you're the only person who wished me happy birthday today was your firm. So we want to automate as much as possible. So look at that list of things that you're doing and say, if I had a magic wand, I would solve it with this. Now, maybe that solving it is, I need more rapport with my leads. And since I'm in court and since I'm running all over the place, maybe I'm going to hire a remote person to help me make those follow-up phone calls and then patch them through to me when they get somebody on the phone. They can send text messages. Hey, do you want to turn to Attorney Ruane right now? I can get them on the phone with you. You might get 9 no's, but when you get that yes, now they have a job to get you on the phone with them so that you can close that client. So it might be a person. It could be a part-time person that can do that stuff for you. The great thing about part-time people is that you can even get a high school student to come in after school. They get out of school 2:30. They're in their office from 2:30 to 5. They're doing your follow-ups. They're sending out those retainer agreements. They're sending out those payment links. So they're getting office skills, interacting with people, and that's a good thing for kids these days, because they definitely don't know how to interact with people other than through text messaging. But it can actually then tee them up to talk to you when they're ready. But the big thing that you need to do is identify your bottleneck, right? And unfortunately, a lot of us need to look in the mirror, because we tend to insert ourselves into too many processes of the intake process, too many steps of the intake process. So let's identify, how can we really enhance that potential new client journey through initial contact, through retaining us? And then what can we do to implement that when the lawyer is not the one that has to implement it? Because with so many things on their plate, they are not going to do a good job of implementing the changes. So we need to have somebody on the team to take ownership of it and say, hey, look, I'm going to make sure that this gets taken care of in our office so that the bottleneck doesn't go with the attorney, it actually just gets solved and it's no longer a bottleneck. But identify what tools are you out there. That question that I asked on the last slide, in a perfect world, what can you wave a magic wand and get to solve your problem? That's where I'm looking for in this one. Let's solve that bottleneck. Maybe it's software. Maybe it's a person. Maybe it's actually defining the system and saying, we're going to do steps A, B, C, D, E, and F. And this is going to be our system for intakes. But it may be that you just don't have it documented well or well enough for a stranger to come in and be able to follow it. You know, if you had somebody unfortunately pass away in the office and you needed a temp worker to come in, they should be able to read your system and say, okay, I can do this. This makes sense. I may have to refer to the system multiple times to understand what the next step is. But if you have nothing documented, if that person is out, whether they need surgery, whether they're injured, whether they are sick, whether they're on vacation, you're going to have a person coming to you every 5 minutes saying, what do I do next? What do I do next? And there it is. You're the bottleneck. So we need to avoid you as the lawyer being the bottleneck on the system. All right. So the takeaways from this. Looking at your flow from beginning, the first time they make contact with you. If it's a referral, is it a lawyer-to-lawyer referral, professional-to-lawyer referral, former client, a person in the community? Which one of those referrals is it coming from? If it's digital, is it pay-per-click, LSA, organic, social media? Where is it coming from? Identify all the different methods on which you attract clients to your firm. And then let's identify the pathway from initial contact through either they've decided to retain you or they've basically said, please stop calling me. I don't want to talk to you anymore. And I'll tell you, you're going to get a lot more people retaining than saying, please don't talk to me anymore, because they know they have a problem. They may not want to address it, but at some point they're going to have to. So if you can set yourself up to have a full view of that journey on a board in your room somewhere, and you can talk about, hey, we can automate this, or B, we can actually combine these steps and I can film a video that I can send out to every client saying, hey, now that you've talked to us, let me tell you about some of the resources that we give. Let me tell you about some of the things that we do differently in our office. One of the things that we're starting to use in our office is a lot of AI. People love to hear that you're using AI to help them on their case. We use a number of AIs, one to look at body cam. We have another AI tool that we're using to create client sentencing memorandums and narratives and client mitigation reports. So I actually went into the studio last week and I cut a video saying, hey, now that you are considering us, let me tell you what separates us from other law firms. And one of the things that separates us is that we're on the forefront of technology. So we're using AI to review your body cams. We're using AI to be able to prevent, to get together mitigation that other lawyers may not have the access to those tools. And I know they don't have access to those tools because I built them in our own office. So I can say that we're different from the other firm down the street because I know we have tools that they don't have and they can't have. And that's not puffery. That's reality. So if you were to look at your entire process from beginning to end, what changes can you make today? It's almost an hour into this presentation. I want you to take the next half hour with your team or yourself to actually write out your flow, see where you can combine steps, see what automations you can put together. And if you don't know what automations are out there, certainly send me a message because I'm happy to connect with you guys and help you identify the tools that you might need. I mean, there's make.com and there's Zapier that can connect all sorts of different systems back and forth and send out things. And then there's MailChimp, ActiveCampaign, and different processes that allow you to send both emails and text messages. There's a ton of options out there. I'm happy to give them to you and point you in the directions of things that have worked for us. And we've transferred over years. I mean, I was early on in the email newsletter, and then I got into drips through MailChimp, and then we went to SMS strips. But you have to sort of change with the times, and you have to pay attention to this stuff. And so if I can point you in the direction to be able to do that, I am very happy to do so. But that's it for auditing your intake. I've given you all the steps. What I'm going to do is send out to all the members of the mastermind that are here. Actually, I'm just going to send it to everybody. I actually have a worksheet for this, but I'm going to send it to you when we get off the call. I'll post it in the Slack and I'll send it to everybody by email so you have it. You can actually print it out. It's got boxes that you can fill in. I wanted you to actually write it down in pen and paper while we were going through this because I want you to then do this again and start to see, okay, this is the same problem I identified before. So please, if you have any questions, throw them up in the chat and I'm happy to do it. What AI are you using question from Marcy. I am using Justice Text to review body cams. And I have them coming to talk to the mastermind in March. I'm trying to lock down a date, but I've got them. We've been using them for over a year now. We upload all of our body cams. And I've been interacting with them and their development team to get them to be able to sync up multiple cameras at the same timestamp so that you can see what everybody is seeing at the same time, as well as getting transcripts. The one hiccup that we're hoping to solve is they're really great at identifying standardized field sobriety tests, but they identify the first instance of when somebody's doing it and not a second one. So if they do the HGN, they'll find the first one, but then they might do they might do it again. Yes, it's justicetext.com is what I'm using. Any other questions out there in the chat that I'd be happy to answer? You can please put them up. If not, I will end this session. I will be sure to send everybody a copy of that sheet. If you are not a member of the mastermind and you want a copy of the sheet, why don't you drop me your email address in the chat so I can make sure that I get it to you as well, especially if you're a team member of one of our members in the mastermind. That way you can take it to them and say, hey, we need to do this. And you can show that initiative that will really impress your teammate. Hey, Milton, I'll make sure to get that for you. Aaron's a great guy, so you're at a great firm. Anybody else need that? All right. Candace, of course. I'll send that to you guys and to Bill. I hope he's doing well. We're looking forward to Bill's presentation about the fundamentals of networking coming up in a few months in the mastermind. All right. Any questions? If not, we'll leave it at that. Thank you all for being here. We've got another one of these about systemizing and delegating coming up in March. I'll let everybody know what the date of that is. And if you have any questions, you can get in touch with me. I'm happy to answer your questions. Oh, Marcy, I'm so impressed that you walk when you do these things. I got to get my treadmill back out. You are my inspiration. So awesome. All right, folks, have a great day. Have a great weekend. And I'll see you next week. Bye for now.